Mind off our electric bill? How do you know?
Time is 7:05. We'll call the meeting to order. We have the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Saved a lot. I know, money. A little bit of oil. a lot of gas in the generator, though.
Originally on our schedule, which you might have seen on TV, we're going to have our Auburn High championship football team here this evening, but because of scheduling and so on, we've moved it until after the holidays, and they'll be here then to be congratulated and so the public can meet them all. We have a motion to approve the minutes of 10:14.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. One abstention.
4-1. The citizens' comments, we have Brian, I believe it's Casey. Brian, please.
I'm not sure if I should talk now or either under licensing, annual license renewal. That's what I'm hearing about.
Why don't you come forward now? It's only the one item.
Okay. From what I can understand, there's a problem with what I've been told is an illegal pillared sign on our property. When I was first notified on this on December 5th, I was told that we had an illegal pillared sign. I asked which one it was. There was some confusion over which one it was. I called, as far as I'm concerned, there's one pillared sign on our property, and General Motors took out a building permit to put it up. And in talking with Don, he couldn't find the building permit, so then I called General Motors and got the building permit. He found the building permit. Then I asked if I had to come to the Selectmen's meeting on the 8th, and we went over all of the scenarios, and then he called me back a half hour later and asked if there were any other signs at the intersection of Technology Drive and Route 20, and I told him that there was one 12-by-12 sign from ABC Supply, which is a business just down Technology Drive. And he said that that was the illegal sign, take it down. So the next morning I took it down and I brought it down to ABC Supply. Then I called Pat on the phone to find out if we were all set for my license renewal. And she said that the report that Don filed said that he found one building permit for one pillared sign. The building permit that we found for the one sign was taken out 5 or 6 years after the other sign was already up. The sign was put up when the building was built back in late 1980s. I don't know if there was a building, I'm assuming that it was taken out all at the same time with the building permit for the building by Harvey, but I don't know that for sure. But I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it, number one. Number two, it's been there for 20-something years, and the other one's been there for 16 years. I don't understand how there's an issue with it now after 20-something years or 16 years since the one had the building permit went up.
Mr. Miller, can you give us some insight into this?
Yes, following a letter that I received from Matt from the planning department regarding the illegal signs, there was a lot of dealerships in town that had illegal signs, and I went around and I addressed all the dealers that had illegal signs. I went down, I spoke to Mr. Casey regarding the signs on his property. And there were two pylon signs on the property, one that was put up by General Motors and another sign that had been there prior to that date. There was also another ground sign there that was placed there by the business that was further up the road. I told Mr. Casey that, I mentioned to him the fact that the bylaw only allowed for one pylon sign. And I did mention, and maybe there's some confusion about it or misunderstanding, that the sign on the corner would have to be removed. He could probably saw it down or cover it up temporarily until he got it down, and because he said because of the weather right now he couldn't accomplish it. I said, well, it is on wooden posts. They could be sawn off and taken down pretty easily, but I did some further research on the signs. If there was a sign permit taken out for the sign on the corner of Technology Drive and Route 20, which I haven't been able to find, and they took out a permit in '93 for the General Motors sign, which is indicated on the plot plan that I gave to you. And there was no action taken on the signs for a period of 10 years. They would have became grandfathered. However, I have not been able to locate a permit that was issued for the sign on the corner of Technology Drive. On that application, and my memory going back to '93, to be perfectly honest, I can't remember what transpired back then regarding those signs. The plot plan that was submitted to me indicated the location of the sign, and it also showed an alternate location for the sign, whether they were considering relocating that sign further up near the corner. I don't know. I did approve the sign permit, and I certainly would have given Mr. Casey all the benefit had I found the other sign permit and established whether there was a grandfather status for both of the signs. I have not been able to do that. Therefore, it's my opinion and interpretation that only one of the signs is really legal. Mr. Casey hasn't been able to produce the permit for the other one. I haven't found any record of it. The bylaw only allows for one pylon sign. So that's where we're at with this situation.
Members of the board, have any comments? Mr. Valentine?
I'm trying to figure out exactly how to take the information you just gave me. If there was a permit for the first sign, the fact that it's been there for 10 years would allow it to be grandfathered. But because you can't find a permit for the first sign, the fact that it's been there for 10 years does not allow it to be grandfathered?
It would only have been grandfathered if there initially was a permit issued for it, or if the sign was put up prior to a bylaw that required a permit for it. And the bylaw at that time required a permit for a pylon sign. So it doesn't meet a grandfather status. Uses are not grandfathered. The only time they're grandfathered, if they were there prior to a change in the bylaw, which now made it a requirement, then it would become grandfathered. But in this case, it doesn't.
So do you have the date for us of the date that the sign bylaw became a requirement? Or the year?
Well, it was in place back in '86.
Okay. And do we know when the first sign was put up?
Haven't been able to establish that to be a fact. I don't know.
But if it was put up before '86,
well, he
it would be okay.
That it was prior to '93.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, so if we can't establish that it was before, that it was after '86, how can we establish it's not grandfathered?
Well, it was a requirement prior to that in the older bylaw too, that it required a sign permit. You know, prior 5 years, he said 5 years prior to 93, the bylaw required at that time, and we haven't been able to produce a permit for that sign. If there was a permit for it, then I would have to say it was grandfathered. I would have to say that both of them are grandfathered, but in this case, I haven't been able to establish that fact. So, in my opinion, there's only one of them right now is legal.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments of board members? Mr. Westerman?
Yeah, Don, is it possible that that permit that, he says he got, could have gotten lost someplace along the way?
Well, certainly the permit process and the record-keeping system we had back then, prior to my coming on board was it was a lot to be desired. So, I mean, it is possible that there was a permit. I don't know. I did, suggest that maybe the two signs could be combined into one, as long as they met the area that's allowed under the bylaw now at 24 square feet.
But technically, if it was put up like he said, it'd be grandfathered anyway, correct? If we could find a permit.
If we found a permit and it was there for more than 10 years, and both signs were there for more than 10 years under a valid permit, and even though that only one was allowed, but no action was taken on it, then they would become grandfathered.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I would think that based on what you're saying and what the party is saying, that these two signs were there prior, even though we can't present a permit for one of them, that it should be grandfathered and should be granted. That would be my interpretation of it. Mr. Hammond?
I think Mr. Miller did a great job in the way he handled it, because we've been pressuring him to be stricter on this stuff, so I think we should acknowledge that this should be an issue come before the board to be discussed, so thank you very much. Great job on that. Secondly, I think the burden of proof would lie with the town on this in light of the fact that it's been so long, and since we can't establish that it is grandfathered or it isn't grandfathered, I think it's our duty to allow it to be grandfathered, because we can't prove that it's not, and we don't have any documentation or anything thereof. We can't establish what date that was erected. We know there was a signed bylaw change in '86, so I don't know how we could consciously hold him to that standard.
The only thing that I could say on the matter, and like I say, I can't remember that far back, that, I mean, it's possible when I issued the permit for the second sign, it was discussed about removing the other one, but I can't be sure that that happened.
But again, great job on bringing this up.
And to give Mr. Casey all consideration in the matter.
We appreciate the research that you put into it, Don, and that it was brought before us and so on, and it's our decision to make it whether it is or isn't grandfathered, and I think we as a board will take that action when it comes time and later on in the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. Next agenda item, under public hearings and presentations, we have a liquor license renewal hearing for Chieftain's Package Store. The notice was delivered to the address, unless someone here from there, because I believe that the notice was delivered to the address and no one got it in time. Apparently you know about it now.
Nope, I don't know about it. My name's Mike DeGillis from Keller Williams Realty in Worcester. I'm representing Mr. Conroy on the sale of the liquor store. I haven't been over to the property. When was the letter delivered?
Yesterday.
Yesterday it was delivered?
To his residence.
To his residence?
Yep.
Okay. I was unaware. I spoke to Mr. Conroy this evening. He couldn't make it tonight. He's ill. I'm here on his behalf to figure out some resolution to this.
Excuse me a minute, in that they didn't get the notice in time, does the board wish to postpone this to the next meeting, or to listen to his presentation and act on Mr. Conroy's behalf? with his representative. What's your choice? Mr. Osterman?
You're here representing Mr. Conroy?
Correct.
Chief?
I don't know why Mr. Conroy can't be here. In light of the weather conditions and everything that's transpired over the past week, if the board is considering taking action against a license, I would suggest that we postpone this and wait till Mr. Conroy is able to be served in hand. I don't think a realtor is in a position to properly represent him in his best interests in the matter.
Do you have anything in writing from Mr. Conroy authorizing you to act on his behalf?
I do not.
Okay, Mr. Hammond?
Move to postpone?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
You're just postponing to the next meeting?
Till
Yes.
the next meeting, correct.
What is the date of the next meeting?
Be the second week in January. Second Monday in January. A motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is a vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 6 under appointments and resignations. Committee vacancies. Board continues to advertise for members for the Traffic Advisory Committee, the Youth Commission, the alternate delegate for Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, of which no applications have been received. The Council on Aging. The Council is recommending the appointment of Cheryl Ducharme for the vacant seat on Council on Aging. A motion would be in order to appoint Ms. Ducharme for a term expiring 6/30/10.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, just vote. Agenda item 6C, reappointments. We have a letter from the town clerk's office regarding the renewal of the accountant and assistant accountant's appointments for another 3-year term. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Hammond.
I know the accountant's required by statute to have a 3-year term. I read the charter. I know. Is the assistant required to have a 3-year term appointment by law?
I believe it is a 3-year term under MGL, although I have a concern about the position of town accountant because of the employment contract under 108N as approved by the Board of Selectmen. And I raised this with the town clerk because that term is not consistent with
your term. Right.
Correct.
And that was going to be my second question. So I would move to postpone till next meeting until we can get clarification on the reconciliation of his contract compared to the 3-year term, as well as whether or not the assistant accountant actually needs to have a 3-year term. Appointment, the reason why I ask is in light of the current financial situation we're in, we may need to restructure certain things. I don't think we want to handcuff ourselves into any unneeded appointments at this time, where we can delay a few months when we have a better understanding of our financial basis. The accountant is a mandated one. I'd like to get legal clarification as to whether or not the accountant's assistant is a legally mandated one, or if, to actually have a 3-year term.
Is that your motion?
Well, my motion is to postpone till next meeting for legal clarification of the accountant's assistant, as well as reconciliation of the accountants.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, just vote. Agenda item 7, licenses and permits, annual license renewals. We have a list of the annual license renewals. and all appropriate departments have reviewed the list and no issues have been indicated. Motion would be in order to approve the annual license renewals, provided that all applicable requirements of the state, town, and any of its departments, boards, commissions have been filled. Said licenses are subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void.
Mr. Miller, on motor services, you got down that they have 2 signs up, they only have permits for 1?
To the best of my knowledge, you know, there possibly was a permit for the other one, but haven't been able to establish that fact. Certainly, given consideration to motor service, the sign has been there for a long time, and it's possible that somehow the permit got lost in the in the change in our permit process. And
Carl didn't grant. I realized it was
No,
the same
guy.
individual that was just here that we granted, so
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
it's already been taken care of.
Just have
Mr.
one
Hammond.
question. It seems to be, I think the last meeting we had, there was a question of permitting with signs. I know we've been asking you to be very strict on it, and a lot of the stuff's coming up that we never realized in past years. But I know also town meeting authorized new munis system for tracking of permits. Is that going to help us in reconciling any of these situations we're running into now? I think it was 36,000.
I don't know, possibly. I mean, I'm not totally familiar with the system. It's new. It may help us, certainly. It certainly help us with new things. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Hammond, that would be more in assisting the coordination from the buildings department to the assessing department.
So it wouldn't have much to do with the sign permitting?
It would have more to do with the building permits having triggered the assessor to take their action from Mr. Miller's office. Excuse me.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the said list?
A motion to approve the list shown as 4th license list for renewals, and including a number 14 of Hold Motor Service at 250 Washington Street.
Second.
Any additional discussion?
Can we assume then that said license is subject to all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions has been fulfilled? Add that to the motion.
It's in the
Yeah, the motion as the chair read it just a few minutes ago, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It is a vote. In addition, since the last scheduled board meeting before December 31st, we would need a motion to vote to authorize license renewals if received before the end of the year and have no outstanding issues, provided that all applicable requirements of the state, town, and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been filled, and said licenses shall be subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all conditions shall invalidate the licenses and render them null and void.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is a vote. I would like to bring up just one thing that's not on our list this evening, but attached to our list, we have licenses that have not as yet been renewed, and we have, and I'm not going to cite the individual right now because it could be taken care of before the end of the year, but we have an individual that owes back taxes for 08 and coming up on 09 that it be called. I just want to call it to your attention that we're sure that those taxes are paid before there's any license renewal granted.
Well, clearly under the motion that we just read of outstanding issues, I would expect that to be one of those outstanding issues.
Okay. So we had a motion and a second on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is vote. Agenda item 8, under correspondence and reports, the Town Hall 4-day work week. The board had requested a feasibility report of a 4-day work week for the town hall. I'd like to just say something, and then anyone can chime in after. At the time that it was made, oil was up in excess of $4 a gallon, and now it's substantially, lower than that, plus the costs of putting in an alarm system and everything else for controls in the building. Should we have a power outage when no one was here for 3 days, I think we're defeating the purpose as far as the cost savings, at least for this year, and we should take it under advisement for the future. Does anyone else have any comments concerning that? Mr. Hammond.
I think the discussions we had were very productive. We now have a framework for future years. So if we want to revisit this, we won't be starting from scratch. We know the cost to install the alarms, and we also have a framework with the unions that needed to be worked with. So it was all in all a success, although it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year.
Okay, I don't think we have to take any vote on that. Yep. So that's postponed, at least for the present. Agenda item 8B, keep Auburn warm. Mr. Westerman is going to have an update for us.
We have approximately 10 people on our committee, and the main issue, what we're looking for is we're concerned about the upcoming, like OPEC, they cut back in production and all that. And what we're worried about is just in case we run into the $4 a gallon, people ain't going to be able to make it. So what we're doing now is we're talking to different groups, different people and things like that. We are getting donations in, and we'll be looking, not just for more, but it'll be strictly for the people in town. And everything's all set. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions or comments of Mr. Westerman? There being none, we have a legal report, agenda item 8C, on legal expenses. We had requested that what the legal expenses were. You have that before you. Are there any comments from board members? Mr. Westman.
I'm looking at them, like the prices. Is this the final, or we're going to have more coming in after these figures?
There'll be more coming in, Mr. Westerman. This is a snapshot as of today.
I think I'm become a lawyer.
Is this total expense year to date, or?
From July 1st through 12/11, there's an attached status report attached to the letter with the backup for the invoices that we have paid to date. I have included in the letter invoices received and not yet paid. They have not been paid yet because it required a transfer that needed to go before the Finance Committee to fund these invoices. That transfer has been made. These invoices are in progress and will be paid within the next week to 2 weeks.
So can we just go over the letter for the folks at home? We have 4 different line items here. Is this are these broken down by, I don't want to say subject, but I guess that would be the best way to say it. In terms of, I'll just go through Myers and Harrington, $51,927.
The majority of that is for the Lowe's litigation, and some of that cost is in defense for the planning board for the Diamond litigation.
So that's all planning board litigation?
Yes.
Pajani, Hurley, Ritter, and Salvidio?
That's ZBA's legal counsel in defense
For the defense against the planning board, from the planning board.
For Lowe's.
For Lowe's, and that's $3,975?
That's correct.
Graves Engineering?
That's for engineering engineering expert or work relative to the Lowe's matter.
And that's on behalf of the planning board as
Planning
well?
board.
And Brown, that's the Auburn Hills subdivision. That's that subdivision that's mostly in Oxford?
I believe so. That's strictly planning board.
And planning board. Now, okay, so under that, we have total expense year-to-date. This is additional compared to what's above, correct?
The special litigation captures what you just read, plus we've already spent $2,000, so.
Okay, so that's representative of this stuff we just talked about.
So total year-to-date, including what those 4 items that were just read, would be $127,525.02 as of today.
Okay, general counsel at $43,933, is that anything specific, or is that just across the board?
That's general matters under the, under Attorney Hennigan.
So you couldn't tie that to any one issue?
Actually, if you look at the attached detail, next page. Actually, it's mixed, I'm sorry. It's for Attorney Hennigan and Tracy and Ducey.
And that's mixed issues then?
Mixed
No way to
issues.
identify what it is. And then the $21,148 is Miracle Connell?
All Miracle Connell.
And that's for negotiating of the labor contracts?
Yes, arbitration, mediation, all of those matters.
And that should be substantially reduced now
Yes,
because of ongoing matters, correct?
correct.
That's all the questions I have here.
Question.
I just got one question. Harrington there, it's $51,927.69. They were hired by the planning board, am I correct? And then my next question is, the one we just read, Paulie, Hurley, Reuter, and whatever, is from the zoning board, am I correct?
Correct.
I mean, I can add, I can count, I can talk English, but one is only 4,000, and how come Harrington is up to 51,000? Am I missing something in this picture?
I believe Mieres is the lead counsel for the planning board in court preparation for a case that is to be heard. I don't know the scheduled date.
No, I'm not trying to, put you on, but if you take a look, one's only like 4,000, for one, and then all of a sudden you get 51,000 on the other. It just doesn't make any sense. Do we have a breakdown in this? I mean,
I can't get into the details of it because of the
yeah, okay,
executive
that's all
session
good.
situation, but we can get the board copies of invoices if it so desires.
I mean, I'm just curious, because doesn't make any sense.
Mr. O'Connor?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, I think, and Mr. Kazanovich just answered it actually, we will provide you copies of the backup that give you itemized costs that fill up that $51,927. But planning board and zoning board came before the board for that permission from the select board, that they were retained with the proper authorization.
I hate to admit it, but I think I voted against it. But that's why I'm just trying to figure out why there's such a big spread.
Mr. Hammond?
Thank you to Ms. Kasanovich. I think this is a great tool to have on a monthly basis as requested. It opens up the eyes so the folks at home know where their money's being spent rather than just reading about a $400,000 legal fee bill at the end of the year. They can see it as it's ongoing and progressing, where it's going and what. Although we can't get into the details of the cases because they are executive session, at least now people will be able to have somewhat of an idea of where the money's being spent, and as it's being spent, they'll know. So I appreciate this, and I hope we can continue to do this on a monthly basis.
I would like to bring one thing up, and it's something for us to perhaps look to the future. I would like to see us as a board look into hiring a lawyer on retainer, where we pay him a flat amount for the year to represent all of these actions, other than, the others that need to be done for, for the negotiator or whatever. You have a flat amount. You can control your legal expenses, and I think we have a better handle on what we're expending. One, not allowing someone to go running to, to an attorney for whatever reason, not having a board suing another board, and also controlling our legal expenses by having the individual on retainer and only paying him a flat amount per year by way of a contract. So I just throw that out there as a consideration for the future. It's not anything unusual. It's not anything that isn't already being done in other communities. Any other comments on this issue? Being none, move on to new business. Gift acceptances, which we have quite a few this evening. I'll read them all, and then you can make your motion after. There's one for the library from Mary and Leonard McEwitz, I believe, for $100 to the miscellaneous gift fund. Several for the Council on Aging for grocery gift cards for elders. One from Andrews Lucas Sr. for $25. One miscellaneous for $25. One from Doreen Goodrich for $50. One from the Auburn Democratic Town Committee for $135. Another from the Auburn Democratic Town Committee for $500. One from Richard and Carol LaPrade for $25. One from Linda and Michael Hammond for $25. One from Diane Sachs of $50, Grafton. One from John LaPierre of $25. One from Francis and Joan Cassidy for $25. One from Daniel Carpenter for $25. One from Tricia and Joseph Martin for $50. One from Mark Bonnell for $25. One from Joseph Early Jr. for $50. One from Gertrude and Francis Hergen for $25. One from Chester and Berta Stencil for $50. One for Philip Joyce for $50. One from Catherine McVoy, can't read her last name there, Lonzak for $20. One from Roberta Goldman of Shrewsbury for $25. One from John and Patricia Barkus of $10. One from Patricia Bukowski for $25. Those are all for the Council on Aging for grocery gift cards. And there was one from Fuller Automotive for the Police Department for $200 for the K-9 gift account. We have a motion to accept the gratitude.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I just wanted to discuss all those. You've probably noticed the long list of gift card gifts. I was actually privileged enough to attend an event at the Camp Gleason from the Auburn Democratic Town Committee. They had a holiday party there where everybody brought food, and many of the Democratic Town meeting, the Democratic members went, as well as myself. I don't know how I got invited, but thanks. Basically, what they're doing is they raise money for the senior center, specifically for gift cards. 100% of the proceeds go to the gift cards, and the department head of the senior center gives those out throughout the winter as needed. Last year, she actually ended up, I believe, using them all. So I'm sure this year will be just as hard. It was a great event. I had a great time. I want to thank the Democratic Town Committee for inviting us, and they broke the record from last year's fundraising to this year. So that's all I have on that.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is a vote. Agenda item 9B, Fire Chief surplus property. We have a letter from the chief requesting that the board declare Fire Department's Rescue 2, a 1984 Chevy panel van as surplus property. A motion to declare the vehicle as surplus property would be in order, but I guess the chief wants to speak first, no?
Just,
So
do you have
moved.
any questions?
Second.
Those motion to second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is a vote. Agenda item 9C, contract award for the fire department pumper. We have a letter from the chief regarding a bid for a 1250 GPM pumper. The motion would be in order to authorize the chairman to sign and execute a sales contract with Pierce Manufacturing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is a vote. Agenda item 9D, out-of-state travel policy. We have a memo regarding this item. It's recommended the Board of Selectmen adopt the following policy concerning travel for out-of-state department heads. This policy is requested despite the current freeze. Any department head traveling out of state on town business shall secure prior approval from the town administrator.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Hammond.
What's the current policy? I've never seen this. Is there a policy?
Currently, there's no policy.
Okay, so this would put more checks and balances on okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is a vote. Agenda item 9E, the highway furnace bid.
I think we're getting it.
Have that in the packet?
Didn't make it.
It's on its way to us.
Sorry about the tardiness on that letter.
Ms. Wood, do you have comments to make before we?
No, just the request for the bid to be accepted, awarded.
I have a comment to make. No recommendation is being made here. There are 6 companies, and the cheapest is being suggested as the heating replacement bid. Do we have any? Can you give us any recommendation as to those that are on here, as far as reputation is concerned and quality of product? Because there's a big, discrepancy between the bids. And I don't, want to be involved with deciding on making a substantial purchase and find out that we're going to have problems in the near future.
Right. Each bid packet had to include a good amount of references, and each bid also was a very specific as far as what we needed, as far as our BTUs, as far as an efficiency rate with the boiler once all is done. So I'm very comfortable with that each bid that was put in was to meet the specs that we needed. Very comfortable with the bidders that did submit bids, had met the bonds, had all the forms, and also had everyone really had a very good list of references. I did not actually start calling any of the references. We opened the bid on Monday, since I have not called any of them, but they certainly seem to all do work in this area, and all seem to have, like I said, a quite extensive list.
Okay, one other question before we go in, and does this also include the heating? Would this service the kennel also?
Yes, and that was very specific in the bid, that it stated exactly what needed to be done for the dog kennel to be up and operable, and also for the highway department.
Mr. Westerman?
How can you have a spread of like $30,000? And, you know, from one estimate, it goes from 29,009, say 30,000, and then you're high at 52. I mean, is there any way, I'd like to hold this back until I can actually see the bids come in. I mean, because it's crazy. I mean, I kind of picture them, I can see 10%, 5 and stuff like that.
The bids are in, Carl.
Yeah, I know, but I want to see them though.
So maybe I can ask a more direct question that relates to that, because I can imagine a lot of that cost depends on the type of, this is a boiler, a complete furnace, correct?
That is correct.
So are they all suggesting comparable equipment in terms of, like, there's a big range in terms of quality of boilers and furnaces? So have you checked the quality to make sure we're not getting one on the low bid that's going to conk out in 3 years and we're back here again?
We did put in the specs that it had to meet a certain, since you cannot put a specific brand, we did put that it had to be comparable to that brand, that it had to have same BTUs, that everyone was bidding on the same thing as far as we weren't getting one price for oil heat, one price for gas heat, one price for radiant heat. Everything was very specific to what we needed without telling them an exact brand, because we cannot ask for an exact brand.
So is it possible for us, before we approve this, to ask somebody who would have knowledge of this, whether it be Joe Fahey or somebody in town that might have knowledge of boilers, to make sure that we're getting a good boiler?
Definitely. Mr. Fahey was extremely helpful and actually put the bid together with me and reviewed it with me. He did not review the bids after they were open, only because, like I said, they were open on Monday afternoon. Since then, he's been quite busy with power outs at the school and whatnot. I myself have. Certainly, if you'd like to hold it, review the bids, I have no problem with that.
I would simply like him to look at the equipment,
Sure.
because my guess is that's probably where a lot of that cost differential is in the quality of the equipment, and just to make sure that we're not saving a few dollars up front only to have that breakdown on you 3 years from now, which boilers do.
Understandable.
Mr. O'Connor? Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, I just have 2 questions. I just want to confirm this. Did any representatives from any of these companies get to physically inspect or enter the highway department to look at the heating system at any time?
Yes, I did. Originally, we put the bid out and we had one walkthrough scheduled, because I made it clear I did not want people just coming and going, interrupting either anyone in the garage or myself. After the first walkthrough, I took a list of all the questions, made that an addendum to the bid, contacted everyone that took a bid and said, the questions are here. Plus, I felt, after speaking with Mr. Fahey, that there should be another walkthrough. so that all the questions that came in, all the answers that went back to them, they could then look again at something and be able to piece it together. So we ended up having 2 walkthroughs that were scheduled. One was on Monday and one was a Friday.
And the follow-up question is which one walked through?
I would say all of these walked through. We had 8 people that took out bids. Out of the 8 that took out bids, there was only 1 company that did not walk through, and that was because they took the bid out. Bid originally was due on Friday, the 12th. The company came in, I believe it was the 10th, and wanted to come down and walk through, and I told him that, he couldn't, that he missed the 2 walkthroughs that were publicly scheduled.
So every company had an opportunity to look at this?
Yes.
And
There were a
inspect it
few
at their
companies,
leisure.
I believe, company number 2 and Cyrus, they only came on the 2nd walkthrough. But every company, I believe, came through for both walkthroughs, except in Cyrus only came for 1.
Any other comments? Mr. O'Connor.
Mr. Chairman, to the board, I just want you to be aware that a bidder has filed a protest based upon the fact that there was a declared state of emergency last Friday. The office was closed at the prescribed time the bids were to be received, and consequently they weren't received until 2 p.m. on Monday.
That is correct.
Correct. And so we do have that at the present time. We have talked to council, and the Attorney General's office is aware of the protest, and the present thinking from council is to proceed, that we did everything possible given the weather conditions and the declared state of emergency last Friday. Is that right?
That is correct.
Mr. Hammond.
Sorry. Okay, this is not coming out of CIP money. What percent, how is this being funded? Does anyone have a answer?
I believe, and you can double check with Mr. Kazanovich, I believe this is probably, I don't believe it's a reserve. I believe it's now going to come out of my excess and salary.
I think Darlene had prepared a transfer to go before the Finance Committee as a reserve fund transfer. It's a unforeseen expense, not anticipated. I think given, and we can revisit this, I think given the surplus that may exist in her department now, because there are a couple of positions that have not been funded, may offer an opportunity to sweep some of that for this purpose here. But I think at the time, 2 positions were out, they were advertised, and not knowing, I think
Originally,
that was done
we did say
before the
reserve.
freeze.
Correct. And then since the positions have been frozen, that was the other option that was going to be investigated.
So since the positions have been frozen, with the board's intent not to fill those as a result of Mr. Hammond's request that came before the board at their last meeting, there may be enough money in the salary account to meet this cost. I also want the board to know that the way this was put out as an invitation for bid. So there would be no flexibility. You have to go with the low price. If it was a request for a proposal, it gives you more flexibility in the evaluation criteria based upon the make, model, and equipment, its quality, its dependability. So as it came in now, you have to go with the low bid, although Darlene reserved the right to reject any and all bids. So the bid could be rejected. It could go back out as an RFP, and you don't necessarily have to go with the low bidder in an RFP. But you have to live within the confines of the evaluation of the RFP in order to justify your award.
Okay, what we could do is, as Dr. Gibbons has said, I believe and stated before, we could hold off and wait until we get the advice of Mr. Fahey first before we take action on the selection of the bid.
I'll make that in the form of a motion if need be, so.
Mr. Hammond?
I'll second it, but I have just one more statement. That's more of a statement, but I think I was made aware of this shortly thereafter when I was appointed to the board. When did you know that this heater was in need of repair and/or replacement? Because
In
I think
March.
I knew in May, well, when I came on. So is that really an unforeseen expense? Couldn't this been proposed under the CIP spending of last year prior to town meeting? In lieu of whatever was, I don't know what was proposed, but in lieu of whatever was proposed for, if we known about this in March, town meeting, and we were still in the budgeting process, this looks like a perfect candidate for CIP spending as opposed to unforeseen expense. It's now, were we in December, so that's 7 months. I don't know how much more unforeseen you can get.
I think there was an expectation that the boiler may be able to be repaired at that time.
That's correct.
It wasn't until August that the opinion, based upon a vendor that came in, said his recommendation would be to scrap the boiler. At that point, the CIP was already voted by town meeting for 2009, which left Darlene no other option other than going either to the reserve, through some accounts within her budget, or the opportunity to submit something at the fall town meeting.
In lieu of time, we could approve said boiler and with after the consulting of Mr. Fahey, so that it can take place and won't have to wait until until the middle of January to be done.
And I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
So if that's you had made the motion?
Yes, I'll accept it as a
Do I have a
friendly
second?
amendment.
In other words, we would accept, we would authorize the selection of this bid on the conclusion of the result of Mr. Fahey's advice.
Inspection of the equipment.
We don't have a second yet.
Questions for you if you're willing to.
Oh, I
Second.
withdraw my second. I withdraw my second.
So I'll accept that as a friendly amendment on my motion, so we just need a second then.
Okay, do we have a second on
Second.
that? Discussion. Mr. Weston?
Where there's such a difference in price, I'd like, if it's possible, I'd like to see each of the bids, if that's, can we do that?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to see each of the bids, because, I mean, you're talking
Sharon, I believe, has
20,000 in
them.
between. It just doesn't make sense.
That's fine. Sharon has all the bids.
Okay, can we postpone this for a week or so, or?
We have a motion that's
We
been
have a
seconded.
motion and a second. Mr. Hammond?
In lieu of the fact that this was known about in March, and either, I don't know why we waited till August to get a professional opinion as whether or not it should be scrapped or whether it could be kept, but there was an opportunity to get this, if you knew about it in March, there was an absolute opportunity to get this professional opinion in April or May prior to town meeting in which CIP money could have been used. So I'm not going to support this, and even if there was no way to do it, it could have came up on fall town money for CIP money to be used. There were two opportunities for CIP money to be used. That's exactly, this type of thing is exactly what it's for. Now we're going to take from salary accounts when we desperately need that money for next year. I don't know what happened here, and I'm not comfortable with the answers I've gotten, so I'm not going to support this. If anything, I think we should wait till next year when CIP money comes available. So I will not support this, but sorry.
If I may just answer, Mr. Hammond. In March is when our boiler, we actually shut it off because the problems that we were having with it. Of course, at that point in time, there was very little heat that we were using. We had a company come in to try to keep it going for us, to do some work on it and lag it through, which they did. That, of course, kept us going for a few more months, which then we started to look into, as far as if we were going to replace it or if we were going to repair it. We actually got a bid from the company that fixed it towards the end of March and kind of lagged it until probably late April or May, and that price was $34,000 plus some change. That point in time, we decided, obviously, was there another way to heat the building, which I spoke with Mr. Fahey, because that wasn't a pure all gas, or if there's something different. myself and Mr. Fahey started going back and forth on it. All the prices we were coming up with were over $25,000. They were all in excess of 30 or more, give or take a few thousand. When I brought that to Mr. Kazanovich and Mr. O'Connor, that is then when they said do more of an extensive search to see if someone would repair. And that was what we were trying to put together when one company basically said, you know what, you're going to have a liability if you start that. We went through checking gas lines and all different things. We tried to reconfigure, myself and Mr. Fahey, he came up with some better ideas for the building that we thought would be a more economical solution to change in the heating system. And it was, unfortunately, all of those prices came in and they all teetered right around $25,000, $23,000, $24,000, $25,000, with the worry being if a company came in and their bid was $24,000 and there was one bad pipe, now it was going to be close to $25,000 and over, which then is going to put us in Chapter 30B, I believe it would be 30B issues. So at that point is then when I again continued to harass Mr. Fahey, and we started to collect exactly what the building needed, what the kennel was going to need, and put a bid together. So it's been quite a long process, and we tried to find the most economical solution for the town. At the same point, we also tried to see if it was something that we could lag into next year to use CIP. So that's the only reason there was such a delay.
Mr. Grossman, just if I might.
Yep.
Darlene, what's the condition of the boiler right now? Are we facing repairs on it now to get through the winter? I mean, is it operable right now? Are we facing?
No, the boiler is not allowed to be put on due to afraid of the liability risk between the.
We have no heat then?
No, we do. We have set up temporary heat in the office space and in the men's lunchroom. We have electric heaters. In the garage, we have set up propane heaters that have been approved from the fire department, actually going to be inspected this week probably by the Mr. Ouellette.
Actually, to clarify it, we should, if we were to do it, we should have a motion to accept the recommendation of the highway superintendent for the furnace bid, subject to a review and consensus of Mr. Fahey.
Accepted.
Concurrence, Mr. Fahey.
Yeah.
Is that?
Accepted.
That's it. And do we have a second?
Perfect. Second.
Okay. Any other additional discussion? Mr. Hammond, yes or no?
No.
No. You're making, you're adding? Or?
Yeah. Well, I still don't understand how you can go from 5,000 over, then 12, 17,000 over, 22,000 over, 10,000 over, and then 16,000 over the low bid. I mean, I just don't understand it.
Mr.
What
Westman,
are they doing, making the stuff invisible?
when you become a lawyer, I'm going to become a heating guy, and I will be able to answer every question you have. Honestly, and I'll be, like I said, I opened the bids on Monday. I did not sit down and go through them just due to everything else we had going for weather. And they have been at the Selectmen's office since. Like I said, I did speak with Mr. Fahey to go through them, and of course he has been straight up.
What Ed has stated before is that the bid is a responsible bid, we have to accept the low bid.
Yet she did reserve the right to reject all bids and go back out again. So if Mr. Fahey comes back and says we're not looking at comparable equipment, then the bid would be rejected and we'd go back out with an RFP, correct? That's the assumption here.
That is correct.
Mr. O'Connor.
Mr. Chairman, the law, I think, is responsive and responsible. So they have to have been responsive to what the specifications were, and they have to be a responsible bidder in terms of a business. And that I believe, would be part of the review and concurrence of Mr. Fahey,
Okay.
along with the superintendent.
We had a motion and a second. Mr. Hammond?
No.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Goodman?
Yes.
Mr. Westman?
No.
Mr. Grossman, yes. 3-2. Good, too.
And that's based on review with Mr. Fahey, that's correct?
Based on the review,
And then we'll
Mr.
come back to
Fahey.
the next meeting? Will then it still come back to the next meeting or no at that
No,
point?
it doesn't. It can be done, it will be accepted based on his
Accepted or denied, based on Mr. Fahey's review.
his finding.
Let me see, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Just one thing before we go further into the agenda. School has been canceled for tomorrow. There will be no school in Auburn schools tomorrow.
They're not watching. Mr. Grossman, could I just ask that we also request then just a short note from Mr. Fahey in terms of his conclusions either way that would be submitted to the board, just so there's a follow-up communication. Darlene, through the board to Darlene. Could you ask Joe Fahey just to send a note to the board with his conclusions so that we can close the circle here and that we know one way or the other that he either agreed for reasons or disagreed for other reasons?
I will contact Mr. Fahey in the morning, I'll see if he has any time before bad weather hits.
Thank you.
Maybe we can review them over the weekend.
Mr. Hammond?
I don't think I need a motion, but can I just get a copy of those bids? I don't know if Darlene still has them or if Mr. O'Connor still has them.
first.
But if I could get a copy so I could just take a look at them. And second thing, on behalf of all parents who have had their kids Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and for 2 hours on Wednesday. Oh, thanks. And probably Monday, too. But it's good for the kids, not so good for the parents who have to stay home some days.
Agenda item 9F, Sewer Department, and the proposed charter. Mr. Mitchell?
Honestly, I don't know exactly why I'm here, other than the letter that Mr. O'Connor received from Mr. Hennigan. Are you looking for an explanation
Well,
of concerns, or?
Mr. O'Connor?
Through the board, let me clarify it. The sewer department made a request of town council as to how the proposed charter would affect the sewer
That's correct.
act,
Yes.
the act authorizing the sewer.
Yes.
There's been a response, and it's the obligation, in my view, of the select board to know what the request was and what the response is. Therefore, it's public business and on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hammond?
I'll play bad guy for a minute. This went through a long, laborious process in which there's many things I was opposed to. I don't think anybody's going to deny that. We had our time on town meeting floor, which we had a very healthy debate. We also had open meetings for the Charter Review Committee for any citizen and or board member to come up. A lot of issues came up at town meetings, some resolved, some weren't. I know you spoke to that as well. When the town meeting approved it, I'm wondering why the town is expensing more money to challenge what the town has clearly stated.
We're not necessarily challenging. We're looking for a determination on whether the language that's in the proposed charter is actually, it's somewhat,
Right.
If you look at the second page.
Oh, yeah.
I'll show you.
Yeah, no, I understand your position. I'm just wondering why it's coming in after the debate, after the open sessions, after town meeting overwhelmingly approved it go on, and why it's kind of coming in at the 14th hour, not even the 11th hour, and then using the town's attorney. I could understand if a resident wanted to challenge this to the House, using the town's attorney when he was ready, available throughout the whole charter review. I mean, the process is pretty much over as far as the town's concerned. I think the board is kind of concerned about the fact that, my opinion on it is very similar to yours, but on the other hand, we've gone down this road already.
Well, I did attend the open meetings when I had heard the progress of it and whatnot. I brought this the enabling legislation to their attention, and it's just that the way it's written, myself and on behalf of the Board of Sewer Commissioners, they're not comfortable that the way it's written. What we're looking for is a determination if it is, if our legislation or the acts are repealed, if they are null and void, or if there's only parts that are null and void, or what the actual situation is.
Did you receive approval from town administration to contact town council?
No, because we pay the legal bills out of our enterprise accounts.
But the enterprise account is still, it still goes back to the general
No, it doesn't.
funds eventually.
No.
Still comes out of our pockets.
It still comes out of our pockets, the taxpayers' pockets.
The taxpayers.
I mean, it's about,
Part
it
of
still
the
comes out of the
sewer
taxpayers,
rates.
yeah,
It's
through
part of the
sewer,
sewer rates.
through
It
sewer
does-
rates, yeah.
It has nothing to do with the general fund.
But it comes out of the residents' pockets,
Yes.
okay. And the sewer department is still a town entity.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what you're saying, it's through the revenues of the sewer, but I don't know how it precludes the sewer department from having to get authority from town administration to use the attorney.
Well, I received my authority through the sewer commission, as it stands right now, before the charter change. The sewer commission authorizes me to expend whatever money we need to within the budget.
Well, I certainly don't agree with that position, and I don't know how the board feels about that, in terms of the enterprise account and having it.
It's the way it operates now. I mean, you know, I've always had problems with it myself, but I mean, it is the way it operates now. It does operate outside of our control.
I guess, yeah, okay. I mean, I agree with you in premise. I don't agree with the use of the town's attorney, whether it's through sewer revenues, general revenues, tax revenues, without authorization from the town accountant, whether it's an enterprise or not. But in the principle of it, I stand right behind you. I just, that's my position.
Any other board comments? So it'll stand as written.
As written,
Right.
well, the recommendation was to send it to House Counsel, is that?
Well, it's already gone, I believe, to the House. Hasn't it?
Wouldn't think so.
It's talking about this
Oh.
communication.
Oh, the communication. Yep.
I think if we don't take any action, Mr. Chair, it will, if we just take it under advisement, it will not go to the House and will not confuse the issue, and the charter as is will continue to move forward.
They are. Now, one, why do we need to go to discuss further with town council on something that we already
No,
took
it's
action
not,
on?
Mr. Chairman, we're not talking about town council. If the board wished it, it would go to House Council in the House of Representatives.
Mr. Hammond?
I think we have an obligation to send it to town council, I'm sorry, to the House Council in lieu of the response from Mr. Hennigan. I think we also should at some point look at this enterprise account and its use in terms of legal fees and things to that nature that are, in my opinion, outside the operations of sewer department. Maybe legal, but I think we should, it brings up a concerning thing for me where the attorneys can be contacted on things such as a charter review, although it's direct, you know, it is related to the sewer. I have concerns about that account being used by, you know, for attorney's fees for something that's outside the sewer department.
But it's not outside the sewer department because
Indirectly, no,
it
it affects you, but it's not, I mean, the operational sewer department. Fair enough, the operations of the sewer department, I should have said.
Okay, and page 2 of our mail, town council, it says, as such, I would recommend that this letter, along with an enclosed copy of Chapter 708 in the Acts of 1968, be forwarded to State Representative Paul Frost for his forwarding to House Council as soon as possible. We have a motion to do that?
I think you had a motion from Mr. Valentine.
Huh?
I think you had a motion from Mr. Valentine.
My motion, Mr. Chair, would be to just take this under advisement, because I'm interested in all the work the Charter Review Committee did, going to the State House and not being affected by last-minute late arrivals of information. So I'd like them to have just what they have and not hear later that, well, you had it there, and then you asked But we didn't act on it because you sent up some additional asks, and now we're trying to figure out exactly what the town of Auburn wants. I'm looking for clarity. It went through a process. It was created. I'd like to leave it there and have it come back to us as is. So my motion is to take this letter under advisement.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. Mr. Hammond.
Well, I disagree with the use of the town council. Mr. Mitchell brings up a very valid point that there may be a legal issue with this charter. And if there is, it's better we address it now than it be challenged as a full document and brought to the attention of the House. We run into this with the old charter all the time. I mean, in principle, I think he's right. If he's made a legal case, and I think he has, at least of questioning part of the charter that may or may not be illegal, I mean, I think we should send it to House for advisement, even though it may slow the process. I don't like how we got here, but we're here. So I won't support it, but
I don't want to go on. I want to go on record stating that we're not challenging the entire charter. We're not. We're in favor of the charter. It's just this one particular section that was brought. You know, actually, it was brought to my attention when I received the executive summary for town meeting, because I didn't see the final paperwork. That's when this all was brought up. That's why I got up the night of town meeting and basically questioned the same thing. And then Mr. Hennigan said he had the same concerns.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, and just,
not to.
And just as part of the discussion, see, and going to Mr. Valentine's point, is I'd like to know the intent of the Charter Review Committee. Did they have concerns with the initial enabling legislation to deal with some of these problems that are coming up here tonight? And it was done very deliberately, and so I'm very uncomfortable second-guessing it now this late in the process without knowing what their intent was. Perhaps they were challenging the original enabling legislation and the way it's set up now as an enterprise group.
Mr. Weston?
Yeah, Jeff, we gave all the departments all the opportunities in the world to come up for the charter.
And I was there.
Yeah.
I brought my concerns forward at that point.
Okay. And then we sent it out and it come back okay. That's all I can tell you, because, I was on a charter.
Well, I saw, like I said, I saw the executive summary.
Yeah, but
what was the final proposal, if you will, just prior to town meeting. And at that point, the Charter Review Committee had finished their meetings. And that's when the concerns came forward. All we're looking for
You're
is
saying that the
determination.
changes were made when the door was about to be closed, that it wasn't there before?
Well, I don't have time to go to every one of their meetings to know exactly what they're discussing each night of their meetings.
No, but anything that pertained to the sewer department?
There was no. I don't know when when they were discussing what at what meeting, or there was no notifications to certain departments or whatever that we'll be discussing this, and this tonight or next week or whatnot. So without watching or being at every one of the meetings, and I'm not criticizing the committee by any means. They can't be catering to everyone in town. But without being there at every meeting, we have no way of knowing what was being discussed and when.
Okay, right now we have a motion and a second to stay with the vote of the, and not to
To take this report under advisement.
take it under advisement. Okay, and we had a motion and a second. Mr. Hammond?
No.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivens?
Yes.
Mr. Westerman?
yes.
Yes. 4-1. Agenda item 9G, Police Department. We have a request for the board to vote to authorize the purchase of 2 cruisers. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have my memo before you. The only additional information that I can provide you since I originally drafted this back on December 11th is that we've been contacted by MHQ Municipal Vehicles, who we buy the cruisers from under the state bid out in Marlboro. They have informed us that there are other municipalities lined up behind Auburn to try and purchase these two vehicles because they are 2008 leftovers. The 2009s have gone up for a total price of $1,300 per vehicle. So I'd be asking that you authorize the purchase of the two leftover 2008s.
Mr. Weston.
Yeah, I recommend we get the cruisers, because those things, you know.
Second.
A motion second. Mr. Hammond, discussion?
Yeah, what's the total cost for the cruisers, or the
I
per
believe
cruiser?
we...
Either way, it might be in here.
I think I don't have the purchase order in front of me. I think we're probably about $66,000 or so.
Each
Total.
total? I would ask that the board hold off on this until, I would like to see a inventory of all cruisers and vehicles that the police department currently has in stock with years, mileage, and some kind of assessment of their, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for?
I have no idea.
Their condition, that's the word. Want some kind of assessment of their condition. So 66,000 here, 50,000 here, 127,000 here. We've just spent over $200,000 today. 10% of the shortfall for next year, the projected shortfall for next year. So I would ask that we wait on this. I understand the concern of the additional cost. But I would ask, I've never seen an inventory of vehicles from any department. I've never seen a condition, make them all. The only time we see it is when they go into surplus or when we're asking for new vehicles, so.
Perhaps I can provide you with some of that information now if that would help facilitate things, because they're holding these vehicles until Monday, and they've held them, quite frankly, as long as they're willing to for the town. We have 8 frontline vehicles. We have one of the frontline vehicles has 9,838 miles. Another one has 14,367. Another has 39,820. Another has 37,183. Another has 47,728, followed by 74,700. Followed by 73,798, followed by 40,235. And I'd ask that you keep in mind that we have 5 new police officers that are going to be going out on their own in approximately 1 week. We've come up with a system where the vehicles now, if we have the proper amount of vehicles, we can give them some actual downtime. They're not running 24/7. We also have 4x4s and supervisory vehicle as well. But as far as frontline cruisers, that if that helps, that would be what we have at this time.
Didn't we also just authorize the sale of 4 surplus cruisers?
Yes, you did. 2 were marked vehicles and 2 were unmarked vehicles that were forfeitures through drug cases. So two of them were marked vehicles.
Mr. Hammond?
This is the cruisers. You have 1 4x4?
We have
wheel drive pickup?
We have 3 4x4s.
3 4x4s,
including the pickup truck.
So 3 including the pickup, and then 1 motorcycle?
We have 3 motorcycles.
3 motorcycles, and then you have your vehicle
that we
and
lease.
1 other unmarked car?
The vehicle that I had prior to the vehicle that I have now just went to the detective bureau.
So two unmarked vehicles total?
Nope, that one went to the detective sergeant, and there are 3 vehicles that the detectives drive that are seizure forfeiture vehicles.
So
the town did not have to purchase.
So how many unmarked vehicles total? 5?
5 if you count my vehicle. Actually 6 if you count the supervisor's vehicle, because that's not marked.
20 vehicles, give or take?
Yes.
And how many people are on shift with the new five officers? How many people how many cars in commission at one point?
I don't think I really want to get into deployment in public, but I think it's safe to say that we, as part of the 5 new officers, one is going to be a school resource officer. He's going to need a vehicle to get from school to school. One is going to be a full-time traffic officer. He's going to need a vehicle to do nothing but traffic enforcement.
Okay. Thank you for the information.
If that helps.
It helps tremendously.
Did we have a motion?
Give a motion in a second.
A motion and a second. Mr. Hammond?
I appreciate the information, and $60,000, $30,000 could be one person's job, so I vote no.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Dr. Gibbons?
Yes.
Mr. Westman?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman, yes.
Thank you very much.
Under old business, I'm not going to read through all the items. They're all no change, except for item J, the FY 2010 budget guidance. This item was continued, this item was continued until the first week in January. And that agenda item. First meeting in January, excuse me. And agenda item K, the no tax increase for FY 2010. This item was also continued to the first meeting in January. Legislative issue, Mr. Hammond.
Why is that on old business?
Because we had that on last meeting. So it's now not current, it's old. It's carried forward.
Everything's old, but
It's more like tabled. But that's the category that they use.
yeah, I don't know what's tabled though, because I think the vote was 3-2. I don't think at this point anyone's reconsidering.
The motion was?
New business item, and they
Mr. Chairman, it was a new business item at your last meeting, and you tabled it or postponed it till your first meeting in January. So I think what the chair is saying, it has been before the body at your last meeting. At that time, the action was to move it until your first meeting in January. So that's why it's under the old business. It's currently before you, but to be discussed at the January meeting.
Maybe I missed something, but what's to be discussed? I don't recall any of that. I recall taking a vote. I know Mr. Gribbins had brought it up again, but there was no motion and or second on anything that I recall. It just, he made a statement, I made a statement. I think there might have been a few more statements, and then it was just let go. So I'm not exactly sure why it's on. I could have missed a vote or a motion, but I don't recall agreeing to bring it up again. So, I don't know, you guys voted, do you?
Anyone recall?
No, I mean, it doesn't bother me one way or the other, because we can put it back on the agenda again if we want to discuss it the first week in January, so.
Okay, is that your wish?
I move to remove it from old business.
Okay. That's a motion to move from old business and address it as a new agenda item on the next.
Well, I mean, what are we addressing? I'm not exactly sure. That's what I'm asking. Does anyone have a plan to reconsider their vote in light of new information from now until the next?
I believe with all the subject items, I believe that you brought up, everyone wanted to have a chance to be able to go through and go through them.
No, that's the budget guidance. I'm talking about the no tax increase. There's item old business 10K, no tax increase. This item was continued. I know there's a budget guidance that we're going to go over throughout the week and then bring up. I'm talking about the I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't. Maybe I'm. the no tax increase as an old item.
Does anyone recall that? So, you make a motion to have it removed?
Mr. Chairman, that was brought up, I think, 2 meetings ago. It was voted. We had a request from a board member to put it on the last meeting's agenda, which we did at the request of an individual. I'd have to defer to Sharon as to what the motion was at the last meeting regarding it. But from my point of view, it was voted 2 meetings ago, it was done, and it only came forward at the last meeting as an agenda item as a request of a member of the board. But we'll do whatever your pleasure is on it.
What's your pleasure?
Well, it's a done deal. It's done. It's over. It was voted on.
I mean, we can bring it up by all means, but I just want to make it clear I know there's public perception that there might be a reconsideration, and this, leads to that perception. And so I moved to have it taken off old business. This is done. And that's it. I'm not going to change my vote. I'm not reconsidering. I don't know how the other people who voted in the affirmative.
Okay, that's a motion?
I moved that it be removed from old business.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any additional discussion? Okay, Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Dr. Crivens? Yes. Mr. Westman?
Yep.
Mr. Grossman, yes. 5-0. Legislative issues, are there any?
Mr. Grossman, we've done this many times over the years, but I think it'd be worth, and maybe the mindset in the legislature is different right now under these times, but to send a note off again to our legislature representatives, state senator, again on the local restaurant tax and hotel tax, to make sure that's in front of them. I know they're considering all sorts of new ways of dealing with, the pressure on local communities, so maybe the mindset has changed.
Yeah, that is under discussion, in fact. So it wouldn't hurt to have a letter sent.
Second.
Have a second discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone have anything for miscellaneous? No?
Another legislative issue, the storm that came up last week. We've been working to try to get the DEP to suspend or suspend the date. Did it already happen?
No. I talked to, let me just give you a report. I talked at 6 o'clock tonight to the director of the Worcester area office of DEP. He, as you know, Representative Frost and Senator-elect Moore, as well as Lieutenant Governor and Congressman have been very helpful. I told the director of the Worcester area office that we would probably ask our board to pass a resolution tonight asking that the burn season be brought forward by 3.5 weeks so that individuals who are capable and interested in burning might be able to help in eliminating some of this debris, and that I would ask for a resolution tonight. We had a good discussion this afternoon, late this afternoon, and we agreed to talk some more tomorrow, and they at DEP have concerns regarding it. It is what they view a last case alternative. There are issues that have to be dealt with, but we agreed that Chief Wynot and I would call him mid-morning tomorrow and try to negotiate some amicable agreement that takes DEP's concern and Auburn's. There are other communities that are also making the same request. So I guess to answer your question shortly, in the short form, Mr. Hammond, I would ask that the board entertain a resolution asking that the state cooperate, hopeful that the state would cooperate with the requests of the town of Auburn through the town administrator and fire chief relative to the burn season.
You said it better than me, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Just, I'm sorry, discussion.
Discussion.
If I could, just from the chief, because I happen to notice other communities are trying to avoid burning this refuge, rather trying to gather it in a central point for recycling because they fear there's too much for the normal idea of burning, the burning permits as they were originally intended. What's your opinion on this? I know other communities are discouraging it.
As far as what other communities are doing, I haven't heard any discussion statewide. I can say that if you look at some of the northern Worcester County communities and the amount of debris that they have to deal with, that could in fact be an issue, because the average homeowner is probably dealing with 3 times the normal winter debris that would be dealing with. I think in Auburn we're probably, we are over what we would normally have, but I don't think we're approaching the amounts that they would be in the northern part of the county. I certainly don't have an issue with doing this. I support it. The same rules would apply as would apply any other year. If atmospheric conditions were not appropriate, then I would not allow it that day. It would simply be adding a few weeks to the total season.
Okay.
Well,
Take a vote.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I have one other miscellaneous item that has been sent to Mr. O'Connor from Rich Ringard regarding the Verizon pole and overhead wires at Yongshing. Do you want to do it briefly, or you want to go through it?
No, I'll do it briefly.
Okay.
This is a request regarding the relocation of a pole down behind the old Yangshing building. It is a telephone pole. There's no easement. It's on our property. There has been an ongoing debate between the School Buildings Committee and the phone company since this summer. The Buildings Committee has tried to resolve it. Short version, I received a call from a public affairs official from Verizon on last Friday, and she and I obviously have not been able to link up since that time. I talked to Mr. Ringard late this afternoon. He's away. It's not urgent. I think, similar to the last issue, I would say that if the board could vote a motion, a consensus of the board to ask the town administrator to work this out with Verizon. It is not time sensitive any longer. I'm sure when the storms and the weather conditions, we could work something out with Verizon.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, there's a vote. Anything else from miscellaneous? Mr. O'Connor.
You have before you an agreement between the town of Auburn and the town of Natick, I hope.
Oh, yeah.
It's here when you got
Yeah.
it.
Sorry.
Yeah, you do have it.
I'm gonna look at it, I've read it already.
Actually, I just ask your authorization as it's written. This is related to storm and securing of equipment from another municipality that could assist greatly in taking care of the debris that we have throughout the town.
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, there's a vote.
Mr. Chairman, lastly, if you want an update on the storm situation as it currently exists and as the plans for contingencies are going into tomorrow and Sunday, I asked Mr. Dean to be here along with the chief to answer any questions you might have.
Would you like to come forward, Alan, Chief? Maybe any of the board members have any questions? I know some of them haven't been able to attend some of the meetings, so you can give them an update as to where we stand. Mr. Westerman?
Yeah, could you explain, a lot of people, I don't know if they got the message that a high school, in case of emergency, will be considered, as a shelter for them. And where would they be able to find that information out?
The information that we basically used every tool we could lay our hands on this time, including reverse 911 message, cable TV, putting up the signboards. Ultimately, if anybody calls either my station at 832-7800 or the police station at 832-7777, the information will be there. I know there was some confusion early on when we opened the senior center as a short-term shelter and then realized we were going long-term, that there was a delay in getting the message to the police dispatchers, and I apologize for that. But that information will be both at my station and at the police station.
Thank you.
I don't know if I want to address that question when we get done with Bill Gibbons.
So, as one who was 5 days without power, and this question came to me, is there any contingency, and I guess I'm particularly concerned about the elderly in the community. Naturally, cable doesn't work when your power's out, and with a lot of the new modern phones, you lose your phones, so a lot of people didn't get the reverse 911 message, particularly for the most vulnerable elderly in the community. Do we have, like we see in other communities, a door knocking program where we've identified single shut-ins and make sure that they're okay? Because they're not getting the message. You know, again, if you have a radio and you don't have a battery-powered radio, if your phone needs the electric power, the cable, and they can't get out to see the signboards.
Mr. Chairman, that did become an issue. And ultimately, the police department went through the highest impact areas with the public address system on the cruises. But I do want to make a point that it is true, obviously, that without power you're not watching cable. But the intent in doing that, and it does sound on the face of it somewhat strange, the intent of that is that hopefully someone may be related or aware of it and then go over to Mrs. O'Malley's house and offer assistance. But we did struggle with that and ultimately opted for a low-tech system, public address system. The seniors that were congregated, that were easily located, we were in touch, or Mr. Dean was in touch with the Auburn Housing Authority at 6 o'clock Friday morning, I believe. So those that were in a central location that was we were well aware of, that was the first notice.
In addition, if I may, the outreach coordinator for the senior center and council on aging called us with some names of individuals who might need some assistance, and we went out and checked on them individually.
Fantastic, that's great.
So.
Good.
Mr. Hammond?
Just so that I think overall it was handled pretty well, but there's always holes when you go through this because it's unanticipated. So when this is all done, we should probably sit down, the emergency personnel, identify the holes such as door knocking and things like that, and see if there's any way to create that system now that we know here's what's going to happen. So hopefully we'll take, what did happen, you can't ever account for. That's why it's an emergency, but we can learn from this and create our systems to do it. So it would be really poor if we didn't at least do that in the future when it's done.
Mr. Westerman?
Yeah, Al, if not mistaken, we can provide transportation from point A to point B to the shelter, am I correct?
We did do that over the
Yeah, I know we did, but I just want to make sure that people know that if they can't get out and drive and stuff, we'll have to be able to provide transportation for them.
That's correct.
Mr. O'Connor?
Mr. Chairman, 3 last points that I'll make. One to Mr. Hammond's issue. Whenever you have a situation like this, following it, it's always important to have a debrief. That will probably be delayed because one is going to feed into another, which may feed into a third. But that is a critical part of any emergency, but following it.
Right.
The other point I want to make is as of 6:40 tonight, there were 19 people in Auburn, less than 1/4%. Now, if you're one of those 19, it's still a very serious affair. I do want to, a lot of people will be acknowledged at the completion of this. National Grid is continually acknowledging people, but I do want to point out the assistance of Representative Frost, Senator-elect Moore, Senator Augustus's office, and Lieutenant Governor Murray, and Congressman Jimmy McGovern. We have had very good assistance and very good communication and coordination, but that doesn't mitigate the fact that there'll be a debrief following it, or critique of the system afterwards.
I see Mr. Frost is, the Representative Frost is here also. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to this, no? Is there any additional update that you would like to give the public or the board in addition to the only
On round
19
two or
people that
round
left?
one?
What?
I said on round 2 or round 1. Before we do, Mr. Chairman, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge everybody in the town that works. Just a Herculean effort went on, both from my people, police officers, Mr. Dean's people, the CERT people, especially the Highway Department employees. One of my vehicles was responding up Prospect Street somewhere around 4 o'clock on Friday morning. I'm having a hard time with days right now. Friday morning. And was trapped by debris that came down in front of them and then behind them. And within a matter of literally minutes, Darlene had a loader up there to clear the road to get them out of there and back in service. So I really want to acknowledge everybody, but in particular I want to acknowledge the Highway Department for doing a fantastic job. As far as round 2 goes, I'm sure everybody's watched the news. We've been getting weather reports from multiple sources. We are ready to ramp back up if we have to. I've already discussed with my staff, in particular with my deputy chief, staffing so that one of us will be in the station at all times, working like 12 on, 12 off type of schedule. We just need to, some light in the tunnel. The last weather report that I heard looked a little bit more promising, in that it looked like the worst of the storm was going to go south and east of us. But as we all know, this is New England, and that could change in a heartbeat. So,
Which one are you talking about?
Tomorrow's. I'm not even thinking about Sunday yet.
Oh.
That's just a little blip on the radar.
Okay.
And I am sure Mr. Dean, would agree. If need be, we can reopen shelters on a moment's notice.
I, for one, want to thank both you and Alan for everything that you've done this past week. It's a Herculean effort of what you've done, and you did a great job.
Well, thank you, but it's really the people that did the hard work that deserve the credit.
It's been a team effort, and I think Auburn has a pretty fantastic team. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone have anything else from miscellaneous? We'll take a 5-minute recess before we go into executive session. I'll need a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 23B, to deliberate upon matters which, done in an open meeting, could detrimentally affect the position of the town regarding strategy with respect to collective bargaining and litigation, and to come out of executive session only to adjourn.
So moved.
You don't think so?
We have a second.
Second.
Mr. Hammond.
Yes.
Mr. Valentine.
Yes.
Dr. Gibbons.
Yes.
Mr. Westerman.
Yeah.
Mr. Grossman, yes.